people with depression, a lot of these things, painkillers, right? Like marijuana, coca is an amazing painkiller as well, you know, and it could probably replace a lot of these painkillers that people are on.
Hello there, and welcome to Wrong Ways Colombia Cast with me, Brendan Wrongway Corrigan. Now, it's a link that makes the blood of many Colombians boil, the country's association with cocaine. Yet the humble leaf from which that drug is derived, coca, has been a staple nutritional supplement for various indigenous cultures in South America for millennia, and a number of studies have shown the many health benefits it provides. Today's guest, journalist and writer Ocean Malandra, has written extensively about this more positive side to coca. Ocean, we'll get to those studies highlighting the coca leaf's nutritional value in a bit, but I want to start off with the current legal position in terms of growing coca here in Colombia. Are we finally, some might say, moving more in the direction of countries such as Bolivia and Peru that have a far more liberal stance on coca cultivation? And I hasten to add the distinction between the use of the leaf itself in cruder forms and the highly processed drug cocaine. So what is the position?
That's a very good question. I would say yes, and I would say that it's been moving that way for a while. Of course, there's big news because there is this possible legislation to legalize cocaine and coca to regulate, right, in Colombia, and that's been put forward by several Congress members here in Colombia, including an indigenous senator from Cauca. It's been reported. I think we shared an article the other day that was in Vice. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Canamo. They've got a big spread on it in the recent issue, and I like the way they word this.
Okay.
I don't know if that will come out backwards.
Yeah, but by the way, Ocean, I just want to say, of course, sometimes, or this is also in an audio version, so those just listening won't be able to see the magazine, but yeah, Camino, okay. And there's an article in it. That's the most recent edition, yeah?
Yeah, this is November, so last month. Okay. But it's kind of, I think it's bi-monthly anyway. But anyway, they use the word inevitable, which is an interesting word. And they're talking about cocaine, but they're also talking about coca leaf, because even though I've tried to separate the two, because I find that most people have them packaged together in their mind. And so when I want to talk about, like you said, the positive effects of coca leaf, I have to first kind of disentangle people's ideas about cocaine from it. Mm-hmm. But with this particular legislation, they would actually kind of open it all up. So the cultivation of coca leaf would become legal, and then there would be some kind of regulatory process for cocaine, and it's just it's actually something that's beyond where even Peru and Bolivia have gone. It's actually like, it's more progressive than anything else out there, and Bolivia has always been at the forefront in the past. You know, Evo Morales, like 10 years ago, rebelled against because there's been a UN prohibition on coca leaf since like 1969. And he said that you can't, this is our national heritage. And so he kind of fought for a different position. Peru followed suit. Colombia historically has lagged way behind for a number of different reasons. I mean, most obviously, there's a smaller indigenous population in Colombia than in Bolivia or Peru. Mm-hmm. And even though indigenous use of coca leaf has always been allowed in Colombia, it's just not as widespread because the population isn't as dominant, you know.
And would that also be perhaps because there aren't many indigenous, as you said, and then people associate coca purely with cocaine? And then they want nothing at all to do with it because of obviously what that name does to Colombia abroad. That's probably a reason.
Absolutely, man. And Colombia, of course, has that infamy as well. You know, so that those two reasons together, really, mm-hmm. you hit the nail on the head. But that's been changing, and coca leaf has been kind of silently entering mainstream Colombia. And I wrote a piece for Vice 4 or 5 years ago, and it was called Why Coca Leaf is Colombia's New Superfood. And it was just about this rise that I've been witnessing of products like coca tea, obviously, but a variety of coca products in kind of hit places in Bogota and Medellin and in some of the larger cities, being marketed to kind of the Colombian middle class and also to tourists as a health product. I know that we might not have video, but like, you know, tea. There's even like a Coca-Cola version.
Oh,
and
okay.
these products are made by, like this product is made by the NASA group, which out of Cauca. And it's really interesting because it's a traditional coca cultivating using group. And it's also been a target for many years of the war on drugs. It's been sprayed by glyphosate. It's been targeted as a coca eradication place. And so this is why the issue right now, the crux of the issue is really like, it's a social justice issue in a way, because this is something that is sacred and traditional to a lot of indigenous groups. And then it's something that's been demonized and actively like persecuted by modern society. And so we are really kind of at this strange kind of day of reckoning about all of that.
Okay.
In Colombia more than anywhere else, but all of that has come to a head like nowhere else.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, and to separate, as we said, the leaf from cocaine, because, well, the legalization of cocaine, one route, and I know you read a story of mine a couple of weeks ago where I talked about Bogota's cocaine barrios and a rather liberal use of cocaine itself. But cocaine obviously is highly processed, and how much kind of purity of the leaf you get in it as well, I guess, is debatable. But maybe if it was legalized, you could clean up that whole area, and then the blood and violence that's associated with all of that could also be cleaned up. Now, a cynic might say if the Colombian government got its hands on it, that wouldn't make much of a difference anyway. It might be better the way it is. But I want to talk about the leaf because there was, well, I will say a potentially seminal, was a Japanese study a few years ago. And I say potentially seminal because it doesn't seem to, excluding yourself, but it doesn't seem to have been taken up that much in mainstream media about the wonderful properties. Now, again, some people might say, well, one study does not a superfood make, that it needs more study and research. But again, linked to this thing that you said about the UN calling it like a banned substance, or what exactly is it? So there hasn't been much research done on coca. But what are these wonderful properties that it supposedly has?
Okay, yeah, absolutely, man. So studies, because of its classification, have been banned. And the last real study done, and you'll see this study if you buy any coca product here in Colombia or even in Peru, because they all use this. There was a Harvard study that was done way back in 1973. And that's basically been the only real clinical study in a major university done. And that actually showed, the guy's name was James Duke, that showed an amazingly rich and high content of all kinds of minerals, including the highest vegetable source of calcium ever discovered. And this was published. And so you'll see it on all these coca products. But since then, there really hasn't been anything done. Now, like I was just saying, because Bolivia kind of rebelled about 10 years ago, it kind of opened this window for scientists who want to study coca. They could go to Bolivia and do so because it became part of national culture again. So these two Japanese scientists just completed a 10-year study about 2 years ago, and they published it as a book called Coca un Biobanco. And they studied it in every which way they could. They studied lifetime users. And it's the reason why nobody's heard of it is because it's not published in English. It's only in Japanese and in Spanish. But it's available here in Colombia. There's some of you guys might be familiar with this shop in the Candelaria called the Embajada de la Coca. It's like it's on all the walking tours. People stop and have a cup of coca. And the guy's actually Peruvian, but he sells products from Colombia and Peru, and he has the book in stock. And I've seen it in other bookstores as well. And it's really interesting. It's really in depth. It goes beyond just a nutritional analysis. It gets into the other alkaloids present in coca. It gets into the antioxidant properties. And as the title suggests, un biobanco, it's really just this incredibly nutrient-rich, natural thing. And they also get into the addiction part of it, how it's not addictive in its natural form the way cocaine is. And that's really interesting as well, because they're actually, even in Peru, there are clinics where they treat cocaine addiction with coca leaf, because when people are craving that cocaine fix, they can chew coca instead and get that fix, but they won't get the same high level of wanting more and more and more, that more. And you've heard people describe cocaine as it's moreish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The leaf doesn't have that quality. So there's just so many beneficial qualities to it that you're right. Like, apart from the legalized cocaine thing, which has all of its own history, and I would actually, support that for many reasons. Coca leaf itself actually should have never been illegalized in the first place. That has more to do with kind of glossing over a millennial-old indigenous cultures who have been using it as a health giving thing. That's how they see it.
It's kind of, Ocean, I guess, a bit of Western ignorance. It's like, well, okay, cocaine comes from this, we've got to stop it. And they didn't care at all about the indigenous that use it in multiple different ways and the health benefits that you said it has. You were on about cocaine being moreish, kind of came into my head without being facetious on this, or I probably am, but it's like, yeah, once you pop, you can't stop. What was that, Pringles or something like that? But anyway, I'll get into trouble for saying that. But yeah, so the coca leaf itself as well. Another thing that I read about it can be good, is it for weight loss, or at least it staves off, I should say, hunger. So it can keep you going for longer. Absolutely, man.
It's, obviously an energizing thing. It does stave off hunger. When I really started to realize that there was something to this, I was living in Cusco, Peru, and that is, heavily indigenous, the descendants of the Incans, and there's mamitas selling huge, they have bags of coca leaf like this, and they sell it by the handful, like it's like 2 soles for like whatever you want to fill up your shopping bag with, which is like less than $1. And what you see is these indigenous people of advanced ages, man, 80, 90, going up and down these mountains, carrying these huge burdens on their head or on their back, with this cheek just bulging with coca, because they are not even feeling, they're not feeling hungry. They're not feeling tired. They're not feeling anything but good. And they're just going right up this mountain. And I started to realize, wow, there is really, really something to this. And there's a coca museum in Cusco. Anybody that's been to Cusco has been presented with coca culture too. And you start to realize that, it's something that is highly esteemed in these indigenous cultures, right? So it's beyond just something that's a normal part of their culture. It's something that's highly esteemed. And it's also used ritually in many ways. But it's also used daily. It's used daily to get your work done. The Japanese, actually, to go back to your question about obesity, the Japanese guys also wrote a second book, and it's a smaller book, but it's just about coca for weight loss, because it absolutely probably is one of the best ways to lose weight naturally. Like green tea and other things like that raise your metabolism. It burns fat. It lowers your hunger, and so it's an optimal thing for losing weight.
And I don't mean any offense with this, but then in terms of obesity in the United States, obviously that's a plague at the minute there. So it could work wonders. Yeah.
And not to get conspiracy theory with it, man, but a lot of the things that are plagues in the United States, like people popping all these energy drinks all the time, people with depression, a lot of these things, painkillers, right? Like marijuana, coca is an amazing painkiller as well, and it could probably replace a lot of these painkillers that people are on. It could replace a lot of these things.
Yeah, well, Ocean, I know you're not a medic, but I'd be wondering, because only last week I read an Irish jockey was suspended for 3 months because he had traces of cocaine in his blood. Now, his defense, and this has actually been brought out to be true, that is that he had sex with a girl who had taken cocaine, and that's how it ended up in his blood, but he didn't take it. But my point is, if you took the leaf, would that show up, and then you'd be accused of having taken cocaine? No, or is that completely different? I mean, as I said, I know you're not a medic, but you probably know more than I do.
Yeah, I'm not qualified to answer, but I think there's enough cocaine that it would show up in trace amounts in any kind of test.
Okay.
I think it would.
Because it does seem kind of good like if you are participating in sport or whatever for endurance to have it. You just keep on going.
Absolutely, man.
Better than the Duracell bunny.
I think it just has a lot of applications, and especially to these kind of degenerative diseases that people get later in life, which are also in full crisis mode in the United States and much of the Western world. You know, these Japanese doctors looked at things like dementia, cognitive decline, and they found that, so one of the things is cocaine is one of at least a dozen alkaloids that are naturally occurring in the leaf. And some of the other, it's the only one that's psychoactive, but some of the other ones have like neuroprotective properties or hepaprotective properties. And this is also why there's never been a case of like somebody overdosing from coca leaf, right? Because the coca leaf in its natural form, no matter how high you get on it, there's other alkaloids that are neuroprotective, hepaprotective, or whatever, and there's a balancing effect in the plant that changes when you just extract the cocaine.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and so some of these alkaloids on their own have therapeutic qualities, like this ability to protect against cognitive decline and stuff like that. And these Japanese doctors found that by really just studying people in the 90s and the 80s, centenarians even, who still were mentally sharp and were daily cocaine and coca leaf consumers, you know, whether it was tea or chewing or whatever. Yeah.
Well, you know, the motto for the Irish stout Guinness, it was Guinness for strength. So maybe it's coca leaf for mental ability or whatever, an improved mental ability or something like that. Maybe let's start the marketing campaign now.
It's funny you say that, man. It's funny you say I have a friend who's an ethnobotanist who lives in Cusco full time, and he's always like posting photos of him with his cheek full, and he's like, "This is the real Popeye spinach," you know, like.
Well, maybe it might be better than spinach as well, Ocean, because I recall they kind of reclassified spinach a few years ago. They said it was meant to have all this iron, and now they say it doesn't have as much iron as they had thought previously. I think I remember reading that.
That's highly possible, and that actually opens up another, because this is like multi-dynamic. This whole coca leaf thing, right? So there is on this package here that I have of bags of coca leaf. There is a saying, and they say that it's an Incan saying, but it actually is kind of like a prophecy. And should I read it in Spanish and then English, or should I just translate it?
Well, if you can translate it on the hoof, go for it.
Okay. So in Spanish it says, "Cuando la codicia del hombre haya destruido los recursos del planeta, vendrán los tiempos de miseria. Entonces, la hoja que hoy es maltratada y perseguida salvará el hambre de la humanidad." Basically, it's saying when the greed of humankind has destroyed a lot of the natural resources of the planet, there will be a time of misery. And at that moment, this leaf that up until that day had been persecuted and maltreated will come forward to save mankind from hunger. And that's like, I mean, I know that's really out there, right?
Yeah, it is.
But the thing is, and what's happening is they're making a harina, a flour, out of this coca leaf. And so you can add like a tablespoonful of this flour of coca to anything, any kind of baked good, like to your cookies, or, you know, this little store here in the Candelaria, Embajada de la Coca, the guy makes a fresh torta of coca every day. And you can come in and for 2,000, you can have a slice of it, and it's green, like straight out of a Popeye cartoon. And it has all of these nutritional things. And so like, it's actually strangely realistic that this could be added to white bread or to all kinds of things that people are eating that have very low nutritional content. And you can just add this powdered coca, and it would immediately, you immediately get like high levels. I'm looking at it here: vitamin A, iron, as you said, magnesium, calcium, vitamin C, vitamin E. I mean, it's just incredible. And that's based on that Harvard David Duke study. Okay. So in a way, it's really actually possible that you could, instead of spending all this money that we spend, and when I say we, I'm from the United States. The United States spends a lot of money trying to take this plant off the face of the earth still. And if somehow we could flip that upside down. Maybe could be solving hunger like this prophecy says. I know that's pretty far out there, but I want to just kind of throw it
Well,
out
no,
there.
it's an interesting point, and it ties in. I'll give my blog another plug as well. But I said dealing with, I forget the title again, but using the case that the parasite on planet Earth was ourselves, human beings, that we're the biggest parasite that needs to be gotten rid of on this planet. But yeah, it's certainly interesting, and like when you're completely declassifying or saying that one particular crop that has all these health benefits anyway, supposedly, and that no, you can't use it, and you're spraying it with all these toxins and things like that to get rid of it. Well, it seems like absolute lunacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when you eat it, like mixed into your food, you don't get that psychoactive effect. The cocaine actually has to be activated. And so, the way this is done traditionally, as you see, like with the guys up on the Sierra Nevadas, the Kogies and the Arawakas, they mix it with cow, which is like a seashell, right? And they put it in their mouth.
Okay.
Activator. They actually are getting high. Their mouth is getting numb and they're getting high. Or down in the jungle, they use mambe, which is mixed with a certain ash, and in the Andean regions of Peru and Bolivia, they mix it with other things. But if you just eat it, or if you just drink the tea, you do get energized, but you don't get any kind of high, so to speak. You're just kind of getting the nutritional properties, and you're getting a natural boost of energy. Okay. But there's no actual psychoactive effect at all.
Well, Ocean, some people might say that's like drinking non-alcoholic beer. It's just Anyway, well, look, I want to wrap up this section of it, but
okay.
How likely do you think then maybe in 10 years' time, if you walk into a store or a supermarket in San Francisco or in my own capital city, Dublin, that you could buy coca flour or coca biscuits? How likely would that be, do you think, within a decade?
Man, in 10 years, I think it's highly likely. And that's because things are accelerating fast. You see it happening with cannabis. I see coca as like what do you call that? Like it's in cannabis's shadow still, but it's the sleeper that's behind it. So once people know this, it's just a matter of once they know that there's a natural plant that has all these properties, the demand for it in a place like San Francisco, it would be huge. I could see it on the shelves in like a Whole Foods or whatever,
Okay.
And in 10 years, I think for sure. And I think we'll see it start opening up within the next 5. I really do. And moves like this, and that's how it ties back into this cocaine legalization, because it really comes back to like whether we're going to allow people to grow the plant and not face getting shot or sprayed with cancer-causing things. And once we're clear about that, I think that we'll start seeing the plant itself in more places too.
Okay. Well, we'll watch this space. You heard it here first on Wrong Way's Colombia cast. Thanks for that, Ocean. Now, I know when you're not talking about coca, not that you talk about it every day, but you also write guidebooks, and you have a new one just out. Is that right?
That's right. Let's see. So I'm kind of like still surprised that I got chosen to be the moon author of the Colombia guidebooks. So it's a series, right?
Congratulations.
And the pandemic kind of, thank you, man. The pandemic kind of threw a strange loop into all that, because of course, as you know, tourism is one of the most affected sectors in the whole thing. But it's really cool, man. Moon guides are like single author guides. So they really look for somebody who can kind of be an insider. As opposed to like Lonely Planet, where they piece together a bunch of different writers, and Moon takes a different approach. So I was really, really, really pleasantly surprised to be chosen for that. And I've been traveling in Colombia for over 10 years, and it's been kind of my full-time home for about half that time. And I write about, I write travel things, I write about food, I write about the environment, I write about social issues, and I write about plants too. I thank you for letting me have this conversation with you, because I don't write so much about the politics of the drug war. I do write more about plants, and I write about ayahuasca and yahe and cannabis. To me, coca is one of those. What people call plant medicine. It has it has a function. It's co-evolved with humanity. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but they a couple years back found the oldest pre-Columbian civilization in South America. It's on the coast of Peru. And what they discovered is the reason why these groups stopped being nomadic and settled is because they were mining this cal that they needed to mix with the coca leaf to psychoactivate it. Because as you said, it's not so much fun without the beer's not so much fun without the alcohol. I mean, but this was actually coca was one of the integral sparks behind the advent of pre-Columbian civilization in South America. And so that just puts the whole thing in perspective. It's pretty amazing, Right.
Yeah. Very interesting. By the way, those guides, so I thought, obviously I'm wrong with this, I thought it was just about Cartagena. I thought I saw that on a tweet, but no, it's about the whole country. So.
Right. So there's 4 titles. There's Cartagena in the Caribbean coast. There's Medellin in the coffee region. There's Bogota, just Bogota. Oh, okay. And there is the Colombia, the full book.
Right.
And so I've only completed the first one. And I think we're kind of on hiatus with the others for several reasons. One is that, traveling is just not fully open yet. So I can't even go and do the research that would be required for a lot of these.
Of course.
And so we'll have to see how that works out. But I think in terms of talking about tourism in Colombia, there's a real opportunity to kind of pivot towards a more sustainable model of tourism in Colombia. And that's always been one of my focuses as a travel writer. I used to say I write about socially responsible or culturally responsible tourism, which is kind of a mouthful. But
yeah,
it really, for me, it just means that, tourism has negative and positive potentials. And anybody who's traveled enough has seen both, right?
Of course.
And so I think that the pandemic, with all of its fallout, also has really opened up some opportunities to really focus on what kind of tourism do we really want. I mean, you live here in Colombia. I'm sure you love it as much as I do. And part of the reason for that is just how incredibly dynamic it is and biodiverse. And a lot of that is still off the beaten path. And the government, with the peace process, has plans to open these places up. So it's kind of like we're actually kind of starting from zero in some of these areas that have never had tourism before. So I really look forward to being part of making sure that those communities really benefit from tourism, that tourism stabilizes their environmental situation and doesn't destabilize it, and their economic situation and their cultural and social situation.
Because it's that delicate balance, Ocean, isn't it? Because obviously you want to see tourists come into these places, discover. I mean, some people still think San Jose de Guaviare is off limits, but I mean, it's only really an 8-hour bus journey from Bogota, and it's a magical place. But again, you don't want these places becoming overran either, because I remember I did the La Ciudad Perdida, the Lost City trek in 2009, the first time I was in Colombia. And I think it was me and a guy from New Zealand and a Colombian couple. That was it. And we met maybe about another 3 or 4 people on the whole 4 or 5 days that we were trekking. And then I remember a friend of mine from home, she was here about 2 years ago, and she did the trek, and she told me just there were hundreds and hundreds of people on it. So again, that kind of takes away from it, but obviously it's inevitable when a country becomes popular, and obviously Colombia has become very popular in the last decade. But it is maintaining that balance, and it's tough. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. By the way, just on the guidebook, then, where can people get that one? So it's the Cartagena one that's available now.
Cartagena one just came out last week. It is available on Amazon.com. It is available on Moon Travel. It will be available in some select bookstores in Colombia, but it isn't yet. But it will be.
Okay.
But it's available, and it's available in bookstores worldwide. It has an international distribution, and
okay.
I talk a little bit about coca in that book because we talk about some of the Sierra Nevada cultures, and the traditional use of coca in that context.
Okay, yeah, well, so people can check that out. And obviously, your name will probably easily come up on Twitter, Ocean Malandra. Ocean Where did the name come from? I know we were kind of laughing about this before we hit the record button, but where did ocean come out of? How did the deep blue? That's my pun.
And that's pretty close, man. That is pretty close. Hippie parents, you know. My parents were of that.
No further questions, Your Honor, when you say that. But well, it's certainly. Do you know any other oceans? As in the name.
I do.
I mean, yeah.
I do. I've probably met a dozen, man. And I think it might even be on the rise. Last time I was back in San Francisco, I was walking through Golden Gate Park, and I heard this woman, Ocean. And I was like, wait, who is that? And she was actually calling a little baby. She was calling her child. And so I was like, hey, there's a whole new generation of us, you know?
Ocean, that reminds me, well, yeah, but it reminds me of the Simpsons episode where Bart is at some theme park and he goes into a store and, you know, they've got all the name tags, fridge magnet name tags, and he's looking at it, like going through it alphabetically, and it goes from Bert to Bort. And he's going like, what? Like, no, Bart? What's about this? Like, who's called Bort? And then this guy turns around and goes, are you talking to me? And then, so like this guy's called Bort. Anyway, go on. I thought it was funny. Where can people, well, I mentioned Twitter, I guess they can follow you on Twitter and the normal social media outlets.
Yeah, pick me up on Twitter. I'm completely freelance. I write for a bunch of different outlets, you know, I move around. Let's see, I've been writing for Manga Bay recently, which is a pretty well-established environmental, you know, I think that with tourism goes down, but environmental concerns go up, you know, and as a writer, I feel lucky, and I feel like it's a matter of survival to have different specialties as well, you know?
Of course.
But I also, to me, they all come together. Like I said, the type of tourism I like is sustainable tourism. So it has an environmental crossover, you know? And the same with food and gastronomy. I write about sustainable food and sustainable gastronomy. All of my, you know, my name is Ocean, man. I got to write about these kind of, it has that hippie tinge to it.
You rule the world, this blue planet, Ocean. Look, thanks a million for that. It was an absolute pleasure and very insightful as well. And let's see what happens with Coca over the next couple of years here. Obviously, we're going to have a change of president in 2 years, or well, less than 2 years now. So you'd kind of think maybe under a more conservative centre-right president like Duque, not much will happen. But maybe if we get somebody more centre, we might see changes. Let's see. Anyway, Ocean Malandra, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for that. That is our lot for this episode of Wrong Ways Colombia Cast. I'll do my own little bit of self-promotion now. You can find me on Twitter, of course, at WWayCorrigan, or search for Wrong Way Corrigan, the blog, on Facebook. But guys, until the next time, ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Brandon.